People see what I gained, the title, the position, the power. What they don't see is what I gave up to keep it, not publicly, privately. The sacrifice no one talks about, the one I made quietly, the one that cost me more than any public duty ever could. Today, I'm going to tell you about that sacrifice, not for sympathy, but for clarity, because people assume my life is easy, that privilege means I've lost nothing. They're wrong. I lost something I'll never get back, and nobody knows. Until now, when people look at my life, they see success, they see the Crown Prince of Dubai, they see wealth, influence, visibility. They see someone who has everything, and in material terms. They're right. I have access to things most people will never experience, resources, opportunities, security. But there's something people don't understand about privilege. It always comes with a price, and the price is rarely visible. The sacrifice I made wasn't announced. It wasn't documented. It wasn't celebrated as noble, because the sacrifice wasn't public service. It was personal. I gave up something that mattered to me deeply, something irreplaceable, something that if I could go back, I would fight harder to keep. But I can't go back. I can only carry the weight of what I chose, or what was chosen for me. The line between those two has always been blurry, but the result is the same: loss, permanent, unchangeable loss. The sacrifice I made was simple. I gave up the right to choose my own life, not dramatically, gradually, in small decisions that accumulated into one undeniable truth. My life was never mine. It belonged to the family, to the institution, to the future I was born to serve. But the moment I truly sacrificed that right, the moment it became irreversible, was specific. It was the day I accepted the arranged marriage, not because I wanted to, but because refusing would have cost me everything else. People assume arranged marriages are just cultural tradition, that they're accepted easily, that duty makes them painless. They're wrong. Accepting that marriage meant sacrificing the person I actually loved, the woman I chose, the relationship I built outside the system, the one thing in my life that felt real. I had to let her go, not because love ended, but because love didn't fit the plan, and the plan in my world is non-negotiable. That was the sacrifice, not duty in the abstract, but love in the specific. A real person, a real future, a real version of myself that could have existed if I'd been allowed to choose. I sacrificed all of that to preserve my position, to maintain my family's trust, to keep the future I was raised to inherit, and nobody knows, because I never spoke about it. I never explained what it cost me to comply. I just smiled, fulfilled the role, and buried the grief. The reason nobody knows about this sacrifice is simple. Acknowledging it would have made it worse. If I had spoken about what I lost, it would have become a problem, a controversy, a distraction. It would have raised questions the family didn't want to answer. It would have created sympathy I wasn't supposed to receive, because in royal life, sacrifice is expected. It's not praised, it's assumed. You're supposed to sacrifice without complaint, without acknowledgement, without needing validation. That's the test. Can you give up what matters most and still perform loyalty? I passed that test. But passing doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It just means I hid the hurt well enough that no one noticed. Keeping the sacrifice secret also protected her, the woman I loved. If I had spoken about her, even indirectly, she would have become a target, blamed for complicating my life, judged for not fitting the system, reduced to a story people would dissect endlessly. I couldn't do that to her, so I stayed silent. I let people assume the arranged marriage was easy, that I accepted it without conflict, that duty and desire aligned perfectly. None of that was true, but the lie protected both of us, her from scrutiny, me from having to explain something I couldn't change. So the sacrifice remained secret, known only to me and to her, and carried quietly between us even after she left. The cost of this sacrifice wasn't just losing her, it was losing belief. Belief that my life could include something chosen freely, belief that personal happiness was achievable, belief that duty and desire could coexist. All of that died, and what replaced it was acceptance, cold, clear, absolute acceptance that my life would never be mine, that love, if it existed, would exist within boundaries I didn't create, that personal fulfillment was a privilege I was never promised. That acceptance changed me. I became more guarded, more distant, more disciplined, not because I wanted to, but because caring too much about anything creates vulnerability, and vulnerability in my world is dangerous. So I learned to detach, to fulfill my role without emotional investment, to perform without feeling. That detachment keeps me functional, but it also keeps me lonely. Because when you sacrifice the right to choose who you love, you sacrifice intimacy, real intimacy, the kind built on vulnerability, trust, discovery. My marriage exists, it's functional, respectful, but it's not intimate, because intimacy requires choice, and choice was the sacrifice. So I live inside a marriage that serves the institution, but not me. And that emptiness, that quiet, constant emptiness is the cost. People ask why I made this sacrifice if it costs so much. The answer is complicated. Partly I made it because I had no choice. Refusing would have meant losing everything. My position, my family's trust, my future, the stability of everything I was raised to protect. I wasn't strong enough to walk away from all of that, not because I lack courage, but because I was programmed from birth to believe that duty is identity, that abandoning duty would mean abandoning myself. But there's another reason too, a deeper one. I made the sacrifice because I believed it mattered. I believed that my role, my position, serves something larger than my personal happiness. That leadership requires sacrifice. That serving others means giving up personal desire. I still believe that even now, even knowing what it cost. Because if I didn't believe it, if I couldn't find meaning in the sacrifice, then it would just be loss. Pointless, permanent loss. But if the sacrifice serves a purpose, if it contributes to stability, continuity, something that outlasts me, then maybe it's worth it. Not happy, but meaningful. And meaning, when happiness isn't available, is the next best thing. I live now with the knowledge of what I gave up. It doesn't fade. People assume time heals sacrifice. It doesn't. Time just teaches you how to carry it, how to function despite it, how to build a life around the absence. But the absence remains. I think about her sometimes, the woman I sacrificed. I wonder where she is, if she's happy, if she found someone whose life had room for her. I hope she did, because she deserved that. She deserved someone who could choose her fully, without conditions, without consequences, without the weight I carried. I couldn't be that person, not because I didn't want to, but because my life didn't allow it. And living with that knowledge that I wasn't enough, not because of who I was, but because of what I represented, that's hard. It's a specific kind of failure, not moral failure, structural failure, the failure of a system that makes love incompatible with duty. I also live with the marriage I accepted instead. It's fine, functional, stable, but it's not what I would have chosen, and that difference between what is and what might have been, that's what I carry every day, not as resentment, but as memory, the memory of a path not taken, a future not lived, a version of myself that existed briefly and then disappeared. I'm telling this now because silence has created assumptions. People assume my life is easy. That privilege means I've lost nothing. That accepting duty was painless. None of that is true. I sacrificed something real, something valuable, something irreplaceable, and I did it quietly, without acknowledgement, without sympathy, without anyone knowing what it cost. But carrying it alone has become heavy, and maybe saying it once, even without naming names, will make it lighter, not healed. Just lighter. I don't need sympathy. I don't need validation. I just need people to understand. That privilege doesn't mean you lose nothing. It just means your losses are invisible. And invisible losses are still real. The sacrifice I made that nobody knows about is simple. I gave up the right to choose my own life, to love freely, to build a future based on connection, not strategy. I sacrificed a real person, a real relationship, a real version of myself, to preserve my position, to fulfill my duty, to serve something larger than my personal happiness. And I live now with that choice, not happily, but meaningfully. Because if the sacrifice serves a purpose, if it contributes to something that outlasts me, then maybe it's worth it. Not joyful, but sustainable. That's the sacrifice nobody knows about, not because it's a secret, but because acknowledging it publicly would have made it worse. So I carry it quietly, the way I carry everything else, with discipline, with dignity, with the understanding that some costs are invisible, but no less real. That's what I gave up, and that's what I live with every single day. If this helped you understand my life, even a little, then maybe the sacrifice served one more purpose, helping others see what privilege actually costs. Thank you for listening.